We've got a very, very exciting program with some superstars who have exceeded our capacity, actually. So we had to increase our Zoom account in order to have everybody here today. So first of all, I want to welcome everybody. I'm Michelle Arnaud. I'm the Vice President of Grey Panthers NYC. It's wonderful to have everybody here. Please take your seats because we're going to get started soon. I also want you to know that next month we have a very exciting next webinar. This is all part of our Unity series, which is an effort to get everybody at the table together. My wonderful co-chair, Carrie Liljadal, is here, and she has created a very exciting program for next month. I don't know, Carrie, if you want to talk about it.
Sure. So we have Governor Mark Parkinson, who is now in charge of the American Healthcare Association. We have Dr. Sherry Lang from CMS. She's one of the chief medical officers from the part of CMS that oversees long-term care. And then we have Susan Ryan from the Greenhouse Project. And we're going to ask them all, we want this about unity. We want it about transformation. And we want to come up with a way for everybody to work together, even when they have to disagree. Agree that they will not always, they have to agree to disagree. Thank you. I just got tongue tied. And it's important that people can work together, even when you don't agree on everything. And that's what this Unity series has really been about. And we're trying to foster relationships, because the only way we're going to fix this system is everyone to work together.
Thank you, Carrie. So yes, mark your calendars. That's August 29th. As you know, we meet the last Tuesday of every month. So today we have a very exciting program, as you know. We are working on building bridges within the community, and we have a fantastic group who has done this on Roosevelt Island, which is a very special part of New York City under the 59th Street Bridge, now known as the Ed Koch Bridge, not to those of us who remember the 59th Street Bridge. Anyway, we've got 4 fabulous presenters, and I'm going to let you know their backgrounds. So we have Abdulfattaah. Spent his childhood between Brooklyn and the Bronx with his parents and siblings. And in a case of mistaken identity, he was shot in a drive-by shooting 2012, which left him paralyzed from the waist down. Today, is a core member of the Open Doors design team, using bold graphics to creatively inspire and uplift the community. He's in the documentary film Fire Through Dry Grass, which we're going to see and have the privilege of seeing a clip of later on, which tells the tale of what happened behind the locked doors of Kohler Rehab and Nursing Center in New York City during the pandemic. This documentary will have its world premiere at the Black Star Film Festival in August, and it will air on PBS on October 30th. So stay tuned. Our next speaker will be Jennilie Brewster. Jennilie is an artist who works in various forums and in community. She is the recipient of numerous residencies and fellowships, and her work has been shown in galleries and museums and published in literary journals. For 7 years, she lived on Roosevelt Island, where she developed and led the Arts and Justice Initiative Open Doors. She guided organizing campaigns and creative collaborations with the reality poets, and she's the producer of this film. I'm going to skip next to Nicole, a social activist and longtime campaigner on human rights, who moved to Roosevelt Island a few years ago. She's a qualified nurse who works primarily with the homeless and refugees. In recent years, she worked and volunteered for various nonprofits. During COVID, she was inspired to assist her immediate community and was active in obtaining PPE and support for Kohler nursing home residents and staff, and building the relationships that we're going to hear about now. And Mikko Cook will be helping facilitate. Her 25-year career as a freelance writer, digital community builder, social justice advocate, and marketing consultant helped her in the heat of the pandemic to grow a Facebook community into an online advocacy organization called the Essential Caregivers Coalition with her co-founder, Mately Weissman. She helped draft state and federal legislation to bring awareness to the long-term care lockdown. And she helped to publish a book to fight for resident designated caregivers to be allowed into facilities no matter what, no matter the public emergency. As the Open Doors Nursing Home Lives Matter movement gardener, she's grateful to tend the soil for the seeds of art, justice, and humanity to grow. And now I'll pass the mic over. I guess Elle will be starting us off. Elle or Mikko, one of you wants to start the presentation.
Everyone, I'm just going to jump in because Elle just messaged me that he is having trouble connecting his video. So let's just, maybe he logged off and logged back on. Emily, do you see him in the participant list?
I can see him on page, well, it's on my page too.
Okay. Oh, you're here. Elle, is your
I can-
video
Yes,
working?
yes.
Or I mean, your audio? Is your audio working? Is he muted by,
I'm asking him to unmute, see if that works.
yeah.
He put in the chat that he's here.
Yeah.
Well, shall we move on with Jennilie while we're working on that?
Sure.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennilie. Where would you like me to start, Mikko?
I think probably the best place to start is, how did you even find out about Kohler?
Okay, I moved on to Roosevelt Island in 2014. It's a small island. It's about 2 miles long in the East River, and Kohler is at the northern tip. And as just living on the island, I would see folks who use wheelchairs around the island, and notice some of them even had tags that signified that they lived at Kohler, and really got curious about the place, and ended up volunteering there. And as a process, oh, Elle, I see you. So does that mean you're how's your mic?
I just suggested to him that he log out, log back in.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
Yay!
Hey.
How's everybody doing?
Yeah. Hey, Elle, I'm going to hand it off to you in a second. I was just saying how I started coming to Kohler as just a resident on the island who was volunteering, and I would see some cool looking young men hanging outside of the facility, and started to get talking to some of them. And that's sort of how we got connected. You want to take it from there and talk about the group and your experience, both as, I guess, as a resident and and also living on the outside?
Sure. How's everybody doing? I'm Al. I've been in Kohler, I'll say about like in the year, let's say like 2013. I'll say probably stayed there within like 3 or 4 years. I have a spinal cord injury, L1 and L2. My injury happened in 2012. During the time, that Jennilie was actually coming to the nursing home and coming around, I actually had a friend, and my friend, I was inquiring, like, who is this lady? Like, what she's about. And he was telling me, like, she actually was helping and trying to, find interesting ways as far as for us youth, to better, creative activities inside the nursing home. as well as like, so that was like more like, oh, okay. I was like, all right. But as time passed on, there was like these workshops, and poetry workshops and not only workshops, it was music production, it was a lot of artwork. So I actually, at the time, I was going to school and doing things and therapy at the time. And I found that the guys was, telling me that it was very exciting and things was going very well for them. And it was a better peace of mind. And so I acquired on it, and I actually went and attended the workshops, and it was like, okay, we're doing poetry workshops. This is kind of cool. This is very interesting. And it went on from there, from the poetry to the art to the music. And yeah, things just became a little bit bigger. Is anything else I should mention, or any other questions about?
Yep. I have a question for you, Al.
Yes.
What are you doing? Why is what you're doing important? How does this help people understand what is the purpose? How are we going to achieve nursing home transformation? And what is the role of COLA in all of this?
The role of COLA happened with the transition of nursing homes during the time of the pandemic. That was a crucial time for all nurses home around the United States, and it was from the outside looking in, because I wasn't there at the time, but to see my peers, loved ones, and everybody going through what they were going through, like it was something that we had to fight for in order to. And how we was able to do it, we had to become creative ways, because it wasn't like nobody could step out the door. So recording things and scenes as far as what's going on inside that people are not seeing on the outside, having Zoom meetings and attending meetings so we could have better understanding and clarity on what things was needed, such as masks and so on and so forth. But as time passed on, and still within that, we actually gathered and was able to get and have help with the community and the support of the community of Roosevelt Island, and that's also out. And that was able to, I would say, push our fight forward for us to be able to get outside again and be able to, it's messed up, because a lot of nursing homes, everywhere, everybody was walking freely, but nursing homes was affected the most. And this is the most top subject that's not being talked about. And the main concern is care. And that's my main favorite word is care. Much care needs to be attended.
Yeah, Al, on the issue of care, what do you see that all you guys have done, Reality Poets and others at COLA, what has been the effect? And what are you hoping to accomplish?
The effect, I would say, was just we lost a lot of lives within that, and mostly it still hasn't not gained. Hasn't been a lot of gain as far as trust, as far as within. I would say the nursing home system, and this is what we're fighting for, because we want to better these changes, and how we was able to do that. Having the task force meetings and such, and attending other meetings with other nonprofits and organizations as well, so we could be able to fight this all together. And that's the main thing.
What would you like to see as part of the change?
I would like to see better care in the nursing homes. I would like to see better activities. I would like to see more communication with the parent, the families, as well as the residents. That's the main thing, is overall care. I would like to see better attending, care. That's the main thing.
And from what you're saying, you're in the middle of it. Literally, you are the voice. You guys are the voice, and you represent a population that, a constituency that we don't always hear about. meaning younger men in nursing homes. And you bring a really powerful difference. And that's what makes you unique, you guys unique. How do you want to make that a little bit bigger?
I would like to make it a lot more bigger with the same way how we pretty much doing right now is gathering and being more together and supporting other organizations and us getting together and actually going to the door, as well as also, I'm sure, you know, we have people, but we don't have basically breaking the laws, better laws for nursing homes and it being set in stone. Like, yo, this, like we got to follow these laws or it's not going to go right here. And things need to be actually like not recorded, but actually really be attended to. I'm not saying supervisors need to come when the supervisors or people that come from the state come around, everybody act nice, everybody act things, sweep things under the rug. I'm not talking about that. Things need to get to the nitty gritty. Like things need to be investigated, things need to be looked through thoroughly. And that's what's not happening.
Such as.
Well, Elle, you mentioned a task force. Why don't you tell us what actions you took to change things for the better?
The task force was actually like meetings that I was attending. It's many people from politicians and such and everybody from the supported community. And it's been a very helpful thing and it's still going. And I believe that the task force actually needs to be integrated with this new law or such with all nursing homes, particularly, so, or at least regions of nursing homes and areas of nursing, so at least where it could be some bit of supervision, but not supervision from people that's not from nursing homes. We're talking about supervision with people that are residents and people that actually are from the nursing home, so that they know what's going on, they know what the problems is, and this is what we done with the task force, and that's actually just helped branch things out even more to where we was able to. Somebody have a question?
So Elle,
Oops.
Elle, I have a question for you. When you mentioned, like, you know, people coming in from the state and things being swept under the rug and all that, when you guys have filed a complaint with the state or whatever, do you feel like they are doing their job when they come in investigating? Or do you think that it's really being hit, that the state is not looking the right way, that they're kind of ignoring what you guys are asking?
I honestly believe both. The state is not looking thoroughly to what's going on, as well as things is being swept under the rug as well. And it's within the nurses, the supervisions. It's a lot of intimidation that's unfortunate for nurses and certain RNs and everything. And this is where a lot of things become, okay, I'm not going to say nothing. I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that. But a lot of people is sitting and they being abused, like whether not physically or neglected, whether, I mean, just by sitting in their waist or so-and-so, or just needing help or need to be transferred or need to be moved, and it's not helping. It's not being in the correlation to the time or when it needs to be. And it's unfortunate due to the lack of staff of nurses right now. And this is something that needs to be more attended to, so we get better nursing homes as well. So when you have much more support, the more people, more nurses, and the more help and the more care is going to be attended to. It's going to be there, I should say.
Al, I'm thinking as we're talking, part of what we're hoping to do with the Transformation Tuesdays is to bring the voice of residents to a much broader audience. And even on this call, we have people from all over the world. What kind of lessons or tips can you provide, because you are a resident of a nursing home, to keep the voices of the residents foremost at the top of everybody's? And how do we get more residents to join the chorus of what you guys have been doing at Kohler? How do we do that?
Hmm. I would say we have to communicate, and it also has to be with the support of the community, as well as, excuse me, support of the community as well as like the residents. But how to start it more so, even if people can't get into in-person meetings as residents, we can start Zoom meetings. Um, nurses can actually help. You know what I mean? Like, oh, because I'm sure a lot of nurses, they can actually help in with far as even linking the Zoom meeting and such, or helping or assisting residents with it. Also, mainly, like I say again, a task force, if some kind of task force within residents, as well as politicians, as well as people within the region or that area, could be able to have some bit of understanding of what the residents need, what is going on in the inside, what needs to be taken care of, what better activities should be there. Yeah.
So
Thank-
how does the task force operate? Somebody here, Karen Klink, has asked, how do you get your voices heard to the people that need to hear them? How does the task force, what's their power?
I think a great person, I would love for Jennilie and Nicole to step in and talk about how the task force actually happened. And that was, the task force was born out of necessity during the pandemic.
Can you
And
task force is?
it currently is, it still is.
Well,
Yes.
what is it?
Oh, what is it? I'm gonna hand that off to Jennilie and Nicole because they were at the birth of, so they can do a job. While we're also part of it, I think that's a good place to start.
Okay, I'll pop in because two like addressed a couple of questions that have already come up. I think, before we got to the task force, Elle spoke about like the, arts group, about open doors and that happening. And that was like, an outsider who didn't work for the facility. So that's, me as an artist coming in to this facility, bringing in other artists, and then together, right, with the residents, creating something with very, very little support from the facility. So that's just one answer to that question of like, how do we get the voices of residents out there? I think we need, neighbors and artists and other people who don't work for nursing homes getting involved and building directly with the residents. And then if you can find an ally on the staff, like for us, it was the director of therapeutic recreation who could give us maybe a room to meet. But they didn't, but that was kind of it, where slowly as they saw the group grow, then Kohler got more supportive. And then in terms of like creating the task force and when the crisis happened at Kohler, it was like, I remember being on the outside and it was like, I'm hearing, horror stories from the people in the group, the reality poets who are living through it. And, describing, all the conditions that and it was like their voices weren't really being heard. Like the administration, Kohler's administration was doing nothing. The head of HHC was, denying it all. And it really took, me working through back channels of somebody I know who knows the assembly member, somebody who knows the borough president. It was like going through local government channels. But the residents didn't have those numbers. They didn't know the person to call who can then call the person in the borough president's office. They do now, Vince, who's the current director of Open Doors and a reality poet, can pick up the phone and reach the borough president's office. But at the time, those connections weren't there. So they were built during the crisis. And then and that helped get, we also were able to get in touch with reporters who got that the press was very helpful. And the task force was built through the borough president's office. Once we got her attention and she was put on the phone to really hear directly from residents what was going on, and then other community members like, Nicole, who would talk to visiting nurses, and just a bunch of, it was like really everyone like a groundswell of the people on the inside and the people on the outside being like electeds pay attention to us, what's happening on this island. And then when they had a town hall that some of the reality poets spoke at, and then the task force was built in response to that, and it stayed in operation. And there's some members of the task force, current members, maybe Nicole, you are a current member, I know Francine is, but it's a mixture of neighbors, community members, residents of Kohler, like sort of people who work in the elected's office. I think the new CEO comes sometimes. I think a big win for the Reality Poets activism was that the old CEO, who was totally unreceptive, to the residents' concerns, is gone, and a much more collaborative relationship is in place.
So Jennilie, forgive me, but so you reached into the Kohler group. Is that during the pandemic or prior?
Yeah, so we had been working together for years prior. For 4 years prior, we had an arts group going on where we met in person. And then when the pandemic happened, we were able to go virtual. And part of that was because we were able to get money to get people laptops, get people hooked up on Zoom, because we already had those connections in place. We were able to shift actually fairly easily to a Zoom platform. And that's how we all stayed in touch. And in some ways, Zoom allowed us to, build out and, bring more folks into the space, into the community, more allies in.
So you had already some sort of art connection, some course that you were working within the Kohler community.
Yes, I was working with Elle and the other reality poets, doing poetry, doing plays, doing music, doing all sorts of arts, and actually gun violence prevention was a big part of what we did at the time too.
And the participants, were they artists and poets prior to your showing up at the facility?
I would say some of them certainly identified that way, and maybe their practice had been dormant for a while. Maybe some hadn't been awakened yet. I think, I'm happy to let other reality poets jump in if they want to, speak to any of these questions. I see a few of them in the Zoom room.
So did you have funding from the city for this?
I started as a volunteer. We had no funding, and slowly was able to bring in, at first funding from, my family and friends, and then started writing grants. And then it really, it grew, but it was a slow burn, I would say. But now we're doing quite well. And now one of the original members of the group, Vincent Pierce, and reality poet and protagonist one of the protagonists in the film, he is the director of Open Doors, and I sort of just work as an occasional advisor.
And how many poets are there altogether?
Now I think there's currently 9 in the group, and Elle and Shannon are the only 2 who are former residents of Kohler but now live outside.
So in essence, you started because you'd already had a program within the facility, and then that was sort of lucky, because then during COVID, you already had the connection with the group, and you already had the creative spark going.
Yes, and then what happened from there, and this is a good, no one on the task force is paid. It's really a local, it's run through the community board, and I could maybe, we won't get so deep into those weeds now, but it's all volunteer. But yes, we had sort of the Open Doors circle, and then during COVID, we sort of created a larger community called Friends of Kohler. And maybe Nicole, if you want to jump in and speak to how that grew.
Hi, Friends of Kohler. So I lived on Roosevelt Island for about 6 months before COVID hit. I just moved to the States, and I saw there was a residential care facility on the island, and I wasn't working, and I thought, oh, I'd love to go and volunteer some time in there, do something. And you'd see people either up at Kohler in chairs, in wheelchairs, or around the island. And I definitely thought I wanted to get involved, but I didn't know how. There wasn't an obvious in, and I wasn't quite sure. Then COVID hit, and at the beginning of COVID, I had been involved. I lived in Hong Kong before, so I've been involved in getting KN95s and masks to Hong Kong. By the time COVID hit the US, X amount of only a month or two later, it was the US that needed the masks and Hong Kong already producing them. So I was tapping into my resources in Hong Kong, and I'd seen a video on Facebook on the island from some staff and residents inside Kola who were like, it was a very harrowing video that was on the one of the island groups, saying, you know, how desperate it was inside Kola once lockdown had started. So I'd started by getting donations from actually Hong Kong and Taiwan of masks sent to my house, and needed to get them inside Kola. And then again, Facebook was my friend, because there were people beginning to post stuff about the needs inside Kola. Again, on the local Roosevelt Island Facebook friends, family groups, what the chats. So I started to find routes of getting masks into Kola. At the time, I think it happened with a lot of residential care facilities, for better or for worse, they wanted to see what was coming in. Obviously, they were worried about improper KN95s, enabling people to use PPE that wasn't up to scratch, except things like that. But we were obviously thinking, and the residents were saying, we want something across our nose and mouth. We are scared in here. So we'd find these sort of circuitous routes getting masks into the facilities, sort of meeting people in car parks and stuff. It was all very kind of dramatic and ridiculous that we couldn't actually get masks through the front door, but through Jennilie and her connections in there and other people's previous connections to friends inside Kola, we had people that we could get the masks into, and then they would distribute them to their roommates, to people that were in wards with people who were COVID positive, etc. And then it evolved from KN95s. I found an organization that were repurposing iPads. So I got hold of loads of 30 iPads that we got into Kola. The problem there was getting them linked up and distributed, but I believe people did manage to benefit from that. I then again, through Facebook, one of the visiting nurses who was coming into Kola would put a post on a nearby neighborhood's Facebook saying, oh my God, it's just terrible in here. The residents are locked in, they need this and that and the other. And she was asking people in that neighborhood, which was next to ours, for pen and paper, things to occupy people. They were locked in all day. So then I could use her and link her into our sort of routes into getting things into Kola. I was meeting the visiting nurses as they were having their breaks outside the hospital with their big, what were those masks called? The big ventilation ones.
Now, what lessons have you learned, and how can people around the country learn from your experience in terms to create positive change, not only for the particular individuals, but for the facilities and for families?
So what lessons, sorry?
What lessons can people around from your experience, what can they learn from your?
Sorry, because I did ramble on there. I think the point is just to connect. And if you've got an in, use it.
Well, I think you said you used Facebook.
Facebook was just, honestly,
So
it was.
you went on the internet and you looked for the connections that would make sense. Is that so?
Basically, it did start from Facebook, and that's how I met Julia, and she wanted to set up Friends of Kola. So she set it up, and then we ran it together. And then all we needed to do, especially during COVID, when everyone wanted to give, everyone was worried about their neighbors. All I had to do was put on Facebook and my local groups, and even my neighborhood groups as well, we are collecting. We put on an Amazon wish list, and believe me, within 2 days, stuff was arriving at my apartment. People, you know, we tapped into people's generosity and they're also their desire to connect. So that was really very, very significant. And it was Facebook. I find it an incredible tool for connection.
So did you have a Facebook Kohler page, or?
Just went through the local island Facebook pages.
The Roosevelt Island, because you have to.
Friends, there's two particular community groups. There's Roosevelt Island Friends, there's Roosevelt Families, there's Upper East Side Mums. You know, I find mums groups, I find they're really useful as well. I haven't tried the dads groups, apologies for everyone here, but I found the mums groups very, very useful as well. People.
The reason that I'm asking these relatively detailed questions is because we have people from all over the world. They don't know what Roosevelt Island is. Don't know So
Yeah.
just, you don't even have to explain it, just, they don't know what PPE may be. So just use the fuller words.
Thank you. So yeah, Facebook, and that is global. I'm
So,
looking at
Nicole, do you think being on an island, do you think because it's an island that it was a special situation, or because, anyway, just,
Island. Yeah, no, we're a strip of land, literally just off the 4 minutes by cable car off Manhattan. I think Roosevelt Island has a sense of community because it is contained. It's surrounded by water. But Upper East Side mums, the Upper East Side is a part of Manhattan, and people identify with that postcode, for example, or whatever it is, zip code, and they'll identify as living on the Upper East Side. So globally, wherever you're from, Kenya and everywhere else, and other places in the States, people do, I feel, connect to their local environment, their local village, their town, their district. And there are invariably Facebook groups for those districts. So one way of connecting a residential care home with its community is to just reach out in those groups.
well, someone did ask, how did you get in the door? I mean, I think Jennilie said she just saw somebody, but how did you make the connection? What was the first step?
For me, I never got in the door because it was during COVID. So
Right.
the time I went in was sometime after COVID, when you had to sign in and test. It was all quite crazy. I see a lot of my COLA friends going around the island, and connecting with COLA meant that anyone I see in a chair going around the island, I say hi. I try and make a conversation, I connect, and I think that's what it's all about. It's about connecting.
So it was through the residents, not through the administration, or, okay.
Through friendships with and connection with the residents.
And I would say that like I officially did go in through the volunteer program, but I had a real reason to jump through all of those hoops as like part of an educational program I was doing at the time. It's a lot of hoops. And as we grew Open Doors and I brought in more artists and activists to meet with the group, I had them, all you have to do is say, I'm here to visit so-and-so, and anyone can go through that door. So I find, to answer the question about a lesson, I would say, work, and I think like what Friends of Color did is like worked directly with the residents. Do not rely on the administration. That's the big block. Administration is a big block. And then the other thing I would say is like, we did a lot of programming, and Open Doors continues to do a lot of programming in the neighborhood outside of Kohler. So it's like that door moves both ways, right? People coming in, and also residents, who are able, going out to the local library or youth center or gallery and being part of the island life outside of the facility.
Yeah. And I would add actually that we did run an event, Friends of Kohler, for the island, for the crisis is over, who wants to go and volunteer now at Kohler? So we did an event, and then a few people did contact Kohler to say, I'd like to volunteer. And it was such a protract, they didn't get back immediately. And of course you need to get on it when someone says, I want to do something, the institution needs to grab you. And we need medical exams to become volunteers. There's this very circuitous, very difficult route to actually just going in and doing something. Any member of the public can walk in, or family can walk in and visit someone at Kohler. Yeah, if you want to volunteer, obviously there should be safeguarding, but medical examinations and all these other things, all these obstacles that go in the way of someone's impulse to say, yeah, I want to go and I want to help. And that isn't useful.
So what was the event that you organized?
We did a Zoom event, and a Zoom event when we talked about opportunities to volunteer at Kohler, and we had members of the community coming in, people that had donated to Friends of Kohler. We used that database. We said, hey, do you want to go a step forward now? The emergency is over, the pandemic's over, but now would you like to do something a bit more sustainable in Kohler? And people that did say, yeah, I fancy doing something. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone has actually ended up volunteering because of the obstacles, the delays, and everything else. Yeah.
Well, now we're going to introduce Mikko. Mikko Cook, do you want to take the mic?
Hey, everyone. Basically, I just wanted to, my involvement with the residents at Kohler, specifically the reality poets, came from, again, building community. I ended up connecting to Vince Pierce when we both served on a joint hearing for New York State about residential healthcare facilities and COVID-19. And then, I saw him on this panel. I was there to speak about what my father was going through. And we went our separate ways after the panel, and I went and did my advocacy work. And in that, I was like, what happened to those guys? And I went looking for them. And it was just, one of the key parts of community and building community and making connections is being persistent. And that is never more true than when you're working in long-term care, because it is to the advantage of the administration and the ownership to make sure that there is an isolated system that you are working in. We talk about Zoom meetings and putting residents on Zoom meetings. And Jack, you asked about how do we connect more residents? One of the biggest issues is that there's not enough technology for the residents to access. And even if there is, a lot of times there needs to be assistance for the resident to get online, to be on a Zoom meeting. So the best way is for community to come in the door and say, you know what, we're going to help establish a program with more tech, with Zoom meetings. There's a Gray Panthers meeting coming up. I'm going to go into this facility and help people access through Zoom the Gray Panthers Transformational Tuesday or something like that, because they control the communication, they control how things happen. And so community can open that wide up.
Can you give a little?
So that was just
Can you?
Go ahead.
I'm going to ask for lessons, since we have so many people from all over the place.
Sure.
Give us lessons on terms of building community and the persistence that you were talking about. That's so.
Yep. I think it's a shifting. One of the biggest lessons is shifting a mindset about culture and thinking that, Kohler is a fantastic example of how the community saw them as part of the community, not as people in this building over here. So no matter where you are in the world, right? If there's a residential healthcare facility, don't think about it as a building. Think about it as a community of people, and how do we bring community in and community out? One of the most beautiful things that the residents of Kohler participate in, the Reality Poets, is artist discussions once a month called salons. And they take a person who is a resident of the island, who's an artist of some particular medium, and then a Kohler resident who is also an artist of a comparable or compatible artistic medium. And they have a conversation, not about where do you live or how did you end up in this wheelchair, but let's have a conversation as an artist. And so it's stripping away this perception of I am valued based on where I live or what I'm able to do. And it's more about who I am at my soul. Let's talk on that level. Because once you make a connection, then that connection can help build bridges and help during times of crisis. If all we're ever doing is running in to put out a fire because of our compassion center, then when the fire is over, we're not going to stay connected. But if we can find that place where we connect as artists and as people and as moms and as dads or whatever that is, families, one of the best things about long-term care is they have family councils where families come in and they help, are yet another voice for the residents. So it's connecting on a soul level. Nicole, did you put your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, the salon was a wonderful, wonderful event organized by one of our friends who's not on this Zoom. But what the salon did and does, and what Open Doors does is see each other as equals, not other. Because even if you go in as a volunteer, there is still some, hopefully not, but there is still some sense of doing good, of altruism, of doing for other and not doing for equal. Do you know what I mean? So the beauty of Jennilie's program of Open Doors, they're full on, the guys at Open Doors, and women, sorry to everyone, Francine, you're laughing, you are full on, is that you guys are leading the pack, you're leading it, you are the guys that drove the task force, still do. run the agendas. You're the ones that are saying these are our demands. And as I said, it's all about meeting each other as equals and on different terms, and not sort of the abled and the disabled or what have you. It is just a people. And that's what's so fantastic and so great. And as I said, it's kind of,
Mikko, Al and others, how do you describe the power of the building bridges in addition to the strong interpersonal connections? What is that power, and how does it manifest itself towards change? That could be from anybody, Mikko, Vince.
What about Francine, since we just had a shout out to her?
Where are you, girl?
We're throwing Francine under the bus.
Do you want to talk about connections and power and building bridges? You're somebody who's got so many different hats you wear and connections and positions. That you
Yes,
hold.
Francine, please.
Tell them who you are, Francine, first.
Well, hi guys. Happy to be here. What was the question?
What is the power of the building bridges, not only about interpersonal connections but also about creating change?
Well, the changes we would like here at COLA is, number one, better staff. We need more staff. If we have more staff, I think things can go a much further way. We want a seat at the decision table. We don't want to be told, we want to sit together. Let's have a meeting together and talk about where we can go, rather than just saying, do this or do that. Better communication. We're having that now with our CEO we have now. He's listening to us and he's giving us the time of day to speak with him on any level, whether it's through email or in person. So the community here is great. I mean, during the pandemic, these guys were bringing food for us. They were saying, how are you doing today? Whereby we couldn't even get our own nurses to ask us how we were doing. And these guys, as Nicole just said, she's right. They don't see us as disabled. We connect with each other.
And how does this apply to other long-term care residential facilities? What can they learn from you?
Well, what I would love to see, we have a very good resident council here. And if they have more resident council, that the residents can speak up and say what is bothering them and what they want to happen.
What is the residence council? How many people?
Council is where we meet once per month. And we speak about things that are bothering us. So we come together once per month, first Wednesday in every month, and we meet and I find out from them, because I'm the president of that resident council, what is bothering you? Are you getting your care? Are your rooms clean? And we talk, and our CEO joins us every meeting. So if we have questions that I can't answer, our CEO is there, our head of nursing is there, so she can answer questions as to what is happening during nursing care. You getting the care that you're supposed to get.
And so you can resolve the problems through the residence council?
Oh yes, definitely. And we speak for those who can't speak for themselves. Those that are laid up in the bed and can't get out, we speak for those people and speak up for them.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's just very important.
There are
Yes.
a couple of questions about the task force. Are the families of the residents in the task force? Is the task force just for Kohler, or is it more general?
Well, the task force, I think, was born, as Jennilie said, it was born with politicians, and a group of us here join it every month. Questions before this current CEO questions that we had and things that weren't being done. We were asking. The task force had a voice. The task force had our backs. And what we were asking that they weren't responding to us, task force would then jump in and find out what is happening here. And there's where we get things going on a different level.
So you found satisfaction through.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
Oh, yes. 100%. More than 100%.
There's, oh, go
That's
ahead.
for everyone.
There's a question, could people more easily volunteer with the ombuds program? I guess.
I really don't know. We have been wrestling with this question. Nicole has put in applications months now, and she cannot get in the door. It's too much red tape. We don't know why. Why do you have to have a medical? Why do you have to have this or that just to get in to read a book to someone? Or there's a lot of, they need help here in every area. And we're trying to get volunteers to come through the door so we can better meet our needs, and especially for those who can't get out of bed.
I'm going to jump in a second here. This is a great example. So what we're talking about is the volunteer program at Kohler. In order to be a volunteer, they're requiring a lot of forms. They're requiring you to have a physical. They're requiring medical forms that you have to submit, all of these things just to volunteer. If you just wanted to come in and read to people who need to be read to, you have to have all of this stuff filled out. So this is an example of where, you know, resident council brings it up with administration. Not if there's no movement, then this gets taken to the task force, the Kohler task force, which has Francine on it and residents on it, but it also has advocates on it. It is overseen by the head of the community board of Manhattan. And it meets once a month, and the CEO is invited to the conversation. And then we have a conversation. So he's almost held out into the public light, where there are people like Nicole and myself and other politicians and policymakers on that call being like, okay, resident council asked you about this. What's happening? Why has there been no movement? Why is it so hard to put a volunteer into Kohler? And then generally the answer is, well, you know what, I'm not really sure. I'm going to go research that and get back to you. And then administration comes and gives us an answer or doesn't or whatever. But this is one of the issues that gets taken to the task force and is followed up periodically. And if we have to, there have been incidences in the past where we pull in organizations like Disability New York or the ombudsman or whoever to say, you know, and the ombudsman is also a key part of this too, because I don't know how this operates outside of the United States, but every long-term care facility is assigned an ombudsman, and that person is a neutral third party who is supposed to be the voice of the resident, but also help the dynamic between the residents and the administration. So they are a key part of that conversation too. I don't want to derail the conversation because I think one of the key parts of how community came together with the residents is the film. And so I don't know if Elle, you want to talk about it? I see Jay's on the call. Jay's actually one of the directors of the film, to talk about how the film happened and how the community was a part of that, because we are going to show a trailer.
Yeah, time is short, so maybe we should show the trailer and then we can discuss it if there's time. So Emily, would you please share the trailer?
Awesome.
Sorry, we cannot wait to see the whole thing. So this was the first documentary, I suppose, made by this group. Congratulations.
Yes.
And picked up by PBS. And you're going to be in a film festival.
Yeah. So Jennilie, as executive producer, Would you like to talk about that? Or,
Because I'm actually not the executive producer, but
or your producer?
actually a producer role is a better role than executive producer, but we won't go into that. I am one of the producers on the film, along with one of the co-directors. Alexi is also a producer. Yes, we are very excited. Film's gonna have its world premiere at the Black Star Film Festival in Philadelphia, August 5th. And a lot of the poets will be coming down to attend that. Yes, the poets are in the movie, and we'll have our PBS broadcast on October 30th. So stay tuned, and hopefully we'll be doing a lot of events, community screenings and conversations and workshops around the release. So please stay in touch with Open Doors NYC, and yeah, we're gonna make some change together.
Actually, sorry if you could hear my mouse. I was desperately trying to find the links for you in the chat. But one of the links that I put in the chat is to the film festival page. You can actually view the film virtually on August 5th. So if you can't go to Philly, you can buy a ticket and watch it online. So you don't have to wait till October.
And do the proceeds go to Kohler
Of the film festival?
or of going online? Yeah, I guess.
No,
probably
it's all the film festival. Yeah.
And the poets, there was a question, the poets are all in the film?
The majority of the poets are in the film. There's, like Jennilie had said, there are 9 poets now. And not all of the poets that are part of Reality Poets now were reality poets then, right, Jennilie? I think a couple joined after. Francine, is that right? I think it is. I'm not really sure.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
But Francine's in the film. You saw
Yeah.
in the trailer. Yeah.
Other thing I'd like to add is that the filmmaker who helped make the film with Jay and everybody else involved lived in the island, grew up on Roosevelt Island. So again, it's about community, it's about connection, it's about, I guess, that extra passion of knowing Kohler, knowing the community. So that was great. And again, sort of like sharing that trailer now amongst our community is powerful, because when they see somebody, whether they're in the movie or not, going down the street in a chair, sitting on the promenade, whatever it is, again, it's kind of not looking at those people up at the north of the island who live in that building. It's about seeing these amazing, powerful, creative, highly talented people in the movie, and people in the Kohler who aren't in the movie, and seeing people as who they are, really, and not as, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, community is even more important right now as this film is coming out, because as we know, long-term care, living in long-term care is a system driven by power. And so there is an extreme vulnerability for the reality poets to have their story told, to put it on the big screen, to take it out to the world at large. So every single person on this call is now part of the community to help stand by the poets as this film comes out, and all of the members of the Roosevelt Island community who are a part of this as well. And it's interesting, I think some of you out there who I have participated in advocacy with, you'll see aspects of the work that we've all done over the last 3 years in this film. It's a very powerful film. And yeah, Alexi Neophytides is the director with Jay. And I think if they had actually started a relationship before COVID, where she was mentoring Jay as a filmmaker. And then when this started happening, it was, well, can we take and make this into something bigger? And if that relationship hadn't happened, this film might not have existed. So you never know the power that you have as a community member connecting with another soul. So, yeah.
So it
I
seems
think
that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I would say the one thing I think that is fantastic about this is actually changing the world's mindset of how people live and look in nursing homes. It is not just old people anymore. They're young, vibrant people that, even though they're disabled, they're still very capable and very willing and very wanting to be a part of their community. And I think that this film kind of wakes the world up to recognize that. So kudos to all of them and all the hard work that they've done.
It seems that the key to success is tapping into everyone's creative juices, no matter what you look like. So thank you for that lesson. And any further remarks? I guess we need to think about task forces reaching into these facilities, creating artistic programs. And there was a question about the salons. Are they online? Can people join?
The salons we did in persons,
Oh, okay.
in person.
So we have to come to.
But I
Roosevelt
think there's
Island.
recording.
Well, one of the
I don't
things
know.
that I'd like to contribute here, listening to what we've been talking about, is the issue of community, building from residents and understanding their talents, and the community from the outside the walls and inside the walls, to create powerful alliances that in this case started during the horrors of COVID and has continued to work towards internal improvements and personal improvements and policy improvements.
Before we sign off, do the other poets who were in the room just want to unmic themselves and say hi, and just say hi if you like. And particularly you, Jay, if you're still there as director of the film, I think it'd be exciting for people to see your face, and maybe you'll get invited back as a guest with your co-director, Alexi.
Hey, I'm just gonna say, I think he might be busy right now. He actually just left the room.
I can say hi, especially to Jack. How you doing, Jack?
Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy.
Right?
As your tutor. Did you want to make any comments about before we sign off?
Yes. We have the UFF P5
Oh, that's someone.
and
Say
all
hi.
the older people and younger people, and
What-
you can wander, cycle, eating, dancing, or what else. And it's now in all Germany. And you meet new people, and they're all older people.
Okay, thank you. Vincent, do you have any final words?
I was just gonna say, I think the importance of building community is really what brought all of this together, brought us together with Grey Panthers. And we should just continue doing that to make change together, as we all are organizations fighting for the same cause.
Well said.
Thank you. All right, well, we're after 3:00, so thank you, everybody, for everything, and thank you to our wonderful presenters, and we'll see you next month at the end of August 29th, at our next webinar. So see you later, and keep up the work. Good luck with the movie. Can't wait to see it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Great seeing you.
Bye. Hi, Jeanette.
Hi, honey. How are you?
Good, honey. Good to see you.
We'll be in touch soon, okay?
Okay, all right.
I'd love that.
Okay.